It is 3 in the morning. You lie on a narrow prison bed, half awake, half asleep, sharing the cramped space with the only companion left to you. A small, fragile presence whose soft breathing is the only thing that still anchors your mind. For weeks you haven't truly slept. Every time your eyes begin to close, a cold terror rises inside you, warning that if you drift too far into the dark, the last piece of your life could be taken without warning. And then you hear it boots, heavy, synchronized, climbing the stone steps in a slow military rhythm. Your entire body locks in place. You know what footsteps at this hour mean. Nothing good has ever followed that sound. The door bursts open violently. 6 men rush inside, carrying torches and an official decree stamped with the mark of the revolutionary government. They aren't here for you. Their eyes scan the room with a single purpose, the small figure beside you, the last connection you have to the world outside these walls. What happens next becomes part of the whispered memories of the guards, the night when a queen ceased to exist, and something far more primal took her place. You launch yourself forward with a strength you never knew you possessed, blocking their path, arms outstretched, voice cracking into raw screams that tear at your throat. You beg them to stop, to take you instead, to spare the innocent life behind you. This is not chaos. This is not the blind rage of a revolution. It is calculated, because they have discovered the one truth that hunger did not break, that humiliation did not crush, that interrogation could not touch. Your deepest and only real vulnerability, the fierce, unbreakable attachment you have to that small, sleeping life. And tonight, they intend to use that love as a weapon far more devastating than the blade that waits in the public square. Forget the myths about Marie Antoinette, the extravagant gowns, the feasts, the frivolous queen detached from reality. That woman never entered this tower. The one standing here now is the last remnant of Maria Antonia of Austria, a girl sent away at 14 to seal an alliance, mocked for her accent, ignored by her husband, hunted by her enemies, and now reduced to a single instinct: protect what little remains. The revolutionaries are about to teach her that even this can be taken. The French court hated her from her very first day. She was Austrian, an enemy by birth. Too young, awkward, speaking French with a heavy accent. Courtiers laughed at her openly. Her own husband ignored her for years. The marriage went unconsummated for 7 long years, a humiliation that became gossip across Europe. So she did what any isolated young girl would do. She escaped into fantasy. Elaborate hairstyles, extravagant dresses, endless parties in a private refuge. The petty Triona and the starving, desperate French people saw these excesses and branded her Madame de Fizadigi. Ever say let them eat cake when told the people had no bread? No, that was propaganda, but it didn't matter. Damage was done. When the revolution erupted in 1789, Marie Antoinette had become the perfect scapegoat of France. A foreigner, a woman, a queen, 3 things that made her an ideal target. But here is the crucial detail no one tells you. By 1793, Marie Antoinette was no longer the party girl. She was a mother of 4 who had watched her eldest son die of tuberculosis at age 7. She had seen her husband dragged to the guillotine. She had spent months in prison with her surviving children, knowing any day could be their last. She had already lost everything: crown, freedom, husband, country. The revolutionaries were about to teach her she could still lose more, much more. The Temple prison was not merely a prison. It was a soul-grinding machine, a medieval fortress in the heart of Paris, originally built by the Knights Templar. Dark, damp, suffocating. After King Louis XVI was executed in January 1793, Marie Antoinette and her 2 surviving children were locked inside its tower. Marie Therese, age 14, Louis Charles, age 8. At first, they were allowed to stay together. Marie Antoinette tried to maintain some appearance of normality. She taught the children, prayed with them, held them at night as the sounds of revolutionary mobs echoed through the streets outside. But the guards were watching, always watching, taking notes, reporting everything to the Committee of Public Safety, the revolutionary government that now controlled France. And the guards noticed something important. Marie Antoinette could endure anything except threats to her children. Then the experiments began. You hear footsteps in the corridor, steady, coordinated, unmistakably official. Not a rushed crowd, not chaos, a deliberate arrival. The door to your chamber opens, and several uniformed officials step inside, carrying lanterns and a sealed document. Their faces are expressionless, trained to remain neutral. They announce that a decision has been made by the governing authority, one that concerns your young son. You react instantly, placing yourself between the officials and the boy. Your posture becomes rigid, protective, your voice firm and trembling at the same time. You are not a queen in this moment. You are a mother whose world has narrowed to one single point, keeping your child close. For long minutes the room becomes a battlefield of words and pleas. You express your fear, your confusion, your refusal. The officials repeat the same line of protocol, calm, procedural, unmovable. Their presence is not wild, not emotional. It is administrative, cold, purposeful, and this is what makes it devastating, because this is not public anger, not a riot, not instability. It is structure. It is policy. It is the machinery of an entire government narrowing its attention on one family. They are not reacting to rage. They are carrying out a measure built on something they observed for months, your devotion to your son. They realized this bond, soft, human, unbreakable, was where your resilience lived. So now they test it. They press on it. They reshape it into a tool that works against you. Not through violence, but through separation, procedure, and authority. Every word exchanged in that room is documented by overseeing officials. Every reaction is noted. Every hesitation is written down. This is not personal harm. This is psychological pressure crafted with precision, the kind that does not leave marks on the body, only on the heart. And as the conversation continues, you understand the truth. This night is not about punishment. It is about dismantling what remains of your inner world. The one place they cannot reach unless they isolate you from the person you love most. August 1st, 1793, less than a month after her son was taken. Guards stormed into Marie Antoinette's room in the Temple prison at 2 in the morning. No explanation, no warning, only an order. You are being transferred. They separated her from her daughter and her sister-in-law. She begged to say goodbye. They refused. They dragged her down the stairs, threw her into a carriage, and drove her through the dark streets of Paris to a place called the Conciergerie. If you know anything about the French Revolution, you know the name. The Conciergerie was called the antechamber of the guillotine. It was where prisoners spent their final days before execution. Marie Antoinette wasn't being moved, she was being prepared for death. The revolutionaries wanted her final days to be as psychologically devastating as possible. They gave her the prisoner number 280, not the former queen, not even her name, just a number. Her cell was tiny, about 11 by 8 feet. Damp stone walls covered in mold, a thin straw mattress, a wooden table, 2 chairs, and a chamber pot. 1 candle for light, no windows, only the suffocating darkness of a medieval dungeon. And here is the truly insidious part. They gave her a folding privacy screen, something that looked humane, something meant to grant dignity. But the screen was a lie, because inside that cell, at all times, were 2 armed guards. They sat in the corner and watched her, every moment, when she ate, when she slept, when she changed clothes behind the useless screen, when she used the chamber pot, when she prayed, when she cried. Constant, relentless surveillance. This was not about safety. She was a sick, grieving woman in her late 30s, locked in a dungeon. This was engineered psychological torture, designed to grind away her last fragments of privacy and dignity. Historical reports describe Marie Antoinette sitting for hours staring at the wall, her face hollow, empty. Guards wrote that she barely spoke, barely moved, barely ate. But at night, when she thought the faint candlelight hid her, they heard her crying, whispering her son's name. Louis Charles. She developed severe bleeding, likely uterine cancer or stress-related complications. She bled through her clothes and had to ask guards for rags. The humiliation she endured while men watched without mercy. Her hair, now fully white, began to fall out in clumps. She was 37, she looked 60, and then came the trial. Marie Antoinette had remained stoic through every insult, every lie, every threat, but this shattered her. She stood up, her voice calm until then cracked with raw emotion. "I appeal to all the mothers in this room," she cried, her eyes burning. "Is there a single one among you who would not be horrified by such an accusation?" She wasn't speaking to the judges, she was speaking to the women in the crowd. Mothers, daughters, sisters. For the first time in the trial, she wasn't defending herself as a queen. She was speaking as a mother whose son had been weaponized against her. "Nature itself refuses to answer such an accusation made against a mother," she continued. "I appeal to all the mothers who hear me." The room exploded. Some of the same women who had come to mark her execution were moved to tears. Even a few hardened revolutionary officers shifted uncomfortably. It was too much, too cruel, but Fouquier Tinville didn't care. He bulldozed through the rest of the trial. At 4 in the morning on October 16th, after a trial lasting less than 2 days and offering no real evidence, Marie Antoinette was found guilty of high treason and crimes against the state. The sentence, death by guillotine. Execution scheduled for later that same day. They gave her just a few hours in her cell to prepare for death. Back in her cell, with dawn approaching and death only hours away, Marie Antoinette was finally given pen, paper, and ink. She did not write a political manifesto. She did not curse the revolution. She did not beg for mercy. She wrote a letter to her sister-in-law, Madame Elizabeth, who was still imprisoned in the Temple along with Marie Antoinette's daughter. The letter is one of the most heartbreaking documents in history. Here are parts of it. "It is to you, sister, that I write for the last time. I have just been condemned, not to a shameful death, for only criminals suffer shame, but to rejoin your brother. Innocent like him, I hope to show the same firmness in my last moments. I am calm, as one is when one's conscience does not reproach us. I regret deeply having to abandon my poor children. You know that I lived only for them and for you, my good and tender sister." She went on forgiving her enemies, asking forgiveness for her own faults, and begging Elizabeth to care for the children. "May my son never forget the last words of his father, which I repeat to him expressly. May he never seek to avenge our deaths." She poured every last drop of her remaining love onto those pages, her final thought as a mother, a sister, a human being staring into the void. The letter filled 4 pages. She signed simply, "Marie Antoinette." Then she handed it to a guard. Here is the devastating truth. The letter was never delivered. The guards intercepted it. It disappeared into a revolutionary archive. Elizabeth never read it. Her daughter never read it. The letter wasn't discovered until decades later, long after everyone Marie Antoinette loved was dead. Her final words to her family died in silence. The French Revolution wanted to destroy Marie Antoinette. The symbol, the Austrian woman, the wasteful queen, the embodiment of royal excess. They subjected her to unimaginable psychological torture. They turned her own child into a weapon against her. They stripped away every dignity, every comfort, every fragment of privacy. And in the end they failed. Because in their obsession with breaking the queen, they accidentally revealed the human being underneath. A mother who fought fiercely for her children. A woman who faced monstrous accusations with courage. A person who, even on the steps of the guillotine, held on to her humanity. They wanted her remembered as the widow Capet, a traitor who deserved everything she received. Instead, history remembers her as a woman who endured 76 days of calculated cruelty and still found the grace to apologize to her executioner. That is the one thing they could not take from her. But the story does not end with the fall of the blade. Because what happened to those who orchestrated her torment reveals something deeply disturbing about the nature of revolutionary justice. Antoine Fouquetinville, the prosecutor who led her trial with fabricated accusations, continued his career of terror for another year. He sent hundreds to the guillotine with the same efficient cruelty he used on Marie Antoinette, until the revolution turned on him. In 1795, he was tried for the same crimes he accused others of committing. He was executed on the same guillotine, by the same blade. Jacques Hebert, the journalist who delivered the accusations of incest, met an even faster end. Just 5 months after her trial, he himself was arrested during revolutionary purges, taken to the same tribunal, condemned with the same arbitrary methods, guillotined in the same square. Antoine Simon, the cobbler who tortured Louis Charles, vanished into obscurity. Some say he died in battle, others that he was executed. The records are unclear, deliberately erased. And what of the boy, Louis Charles, the 8-year-old child who was turned into a weapon against his mother? His story is perhaps the most tragic of all. After Simon was done with him, the child was locked in a dark room in the tower of the temple, alone, without proper care, without love, without hope. When they finally checked on him months later, they found a child broken beyond recognition, covered in sores, malnourished, traumatized until he barely spoke. He died in 1795 at 10 years old, of tuberculosis and sheer neglect, a life completely destroyed by the revolutionary machine that consumed his entire family. Marie-Therese, Marie Antoinette's daughter, was the only survivor. At 16, after 3 years of imprisonment, she was released in a prisoner exchange. She lived until 1851, carrying the memories of that night, the night her brother was dragged screaming through the corridors. The last words her mother spoke before being taken to the Conciergerie, the scars that never healed. She wrote her memoirs decades later, and her words about those final months are heartbreaking. She described how her mother tried to protect them until the end, how she sang to them when gods were listening, how she held their hands when the fear became unbearable. She never lost her dignity, Marie-Therese wrote, not even when they reduced her to nothing. But there is another part of the story rarely discussed. The way the narrative about Marie Antoinette changed over the centuries. Immediately after her execution, monarchists portrayed her as a martyr, Saint Marie Antoinette, the innocent queen murdered by a bloodthirsty mob. Then, in the 19th century, the narrative shifted again. She became a romantic symbol of a lost era, the beautiful queen in her dreamlike palace, destroyed by the brutality of history. In the 20th century, historians dug deeper. They uncovered the real woman behind the myth. Not a saint, not a demon, just a human being caught in the gears of forces far beyond her control. A woman who made mistakes, who was selfish at times, but who also loved her children fiercely and faced her end with extraordinary courage. Then came the discovery that changed everything. In 1816, 23 years after her execution, the letter Marie Antoinette wrote to Madame Elizabeth was finally found. It had not been destroyed. It had been archived and forgotten in a dusty bureaucratic box. When the letter was published, it shocked all of Europe, because it wasn't the letter of a queen. It was the letter of a mother, vulnerable, loving, terrifyingly human. Readers across the world realized they had guillotined, not a symbol, but a real person with real feelings, real fears, real love. There is a question that haunts this entire story. Why? Why did the revolutionaries focus so intensely on Marie Antoinette? Why not simply execute her quickly like they did with her husband? Why the 76 days of meticulous psychological torture? The answer reveals something fundamental about how revolutions justify violence. Marie Antoinette was not killed because she was guilty of specific crimes. She was killed because they needed her to be guilty. She represented everything the revolution claimed to fight: aristocratic privilege, royal excess, foreign influence. But more than that, she was a woman. And in an age where power was inseparable from masculinity, a powerful woman was viewed as unnatural, dangerous. The accusations against her dripped with misogyny. They called her a prostitute, a witch, an unfit mother. The accusations of incest were not just legal weapons, they were designed to destroy her as a woman, a mother, a human being. The revolutionaries understood something every authoritarian regime eventually learns. Before you justify atrocities, you must first dehumanize your target. Turn them into a monster. Then destroying them doesn't feel like murder, it feels like justice. Marie Antoinette became the target of one of the first modern propaganda campaigns. Obscene pamphlets spread through Paris depicting her in degrading sexual scenes. Caricatures portrayed her as a harpy, a Medusa, a demon. Every insult, every lie, every grotesque exaggeration was crafted to turn her from a person into a symbol of everything wrong with France, and it worked. By the time she faced the guillotine, many French citizens genuinely believed they were executing a monster. They didn't see a 37-year-old woman, frail, sick, with white hair. They saw the myth the revolution had manufactured. But the irony is brutal, because in trying to destroy her so completely and documenting every detail of her suffering, preserving every record of her trial and imprisonment, the revolutionaries ensured that history would remember her not as the monster they invented, but as the victim she truly was. Those 76 days in the Conciergerie, the brutal separation from her son, the vile accusations in court, the letter never delivered, the final apology to her executioner. All of it survived because it was recorded by the same bureaucratic machine that destroyed her. And now, 230 years later, when we think of Marie Antoinette, we do not think of the extravagant queen of Versailles. We think of the mother fighting for her son, the woman bleeding in a prison cell while God stared, the human being who faced monstrous accusations with silent dignity. The revolution tried to erase Marie Antoinette. Instead, it immortalized her. There is a profound lesson here about power and resistance. The revolutionaries had armies, guillotines, the full machinery of state terror. Marie Antoinette had only her humanity, and in the end, that is what survived. Because you can kill a person, you can destroy their body, end their life, but if they face death with dignity, with grace, you cannot erase what they represent. You cannot kill their idea. This is why her story still matters today. Not because she was a saint, not because the revolution was purely evil. History is far more complicated than that. It matters because it shows what happens when we dehumanize our enemies, when we turn real people into symbols, and convince ourselves we have the right to destroy those symbols without mercy. The French revolutionaries truly believed they were building a better world. Liberté, eagle-eyed fraternity, noble ideals. But in their zeal to create that world, they became the very monsters they claimed to fight. And Marie Antoinette, she was not perfect. She made real mistakes. She lived in obscene luxury while the people starved. She deserves criticism for that. But she also deserves to be remembered as what she was, a complex person, flawed and human, a mother who loved her children, a woman who endured unimaginable horrors and still found the strength to apologize to the man about to kill her. 76 days. That's how long it took to turn a queen into a prisoner's number, to strip away every layer of identity until only the basic human core remained. And in that core, the revolutionaries discovered something they could not break, no matter how hard they tried. Dignity, the choice to remain human, even when the world around you descends into barbarism. Marie Antoinette made that choice. On the steps of the guillotine, with the crowd screaming for her blood, with her hands bound and her hair cut away, she chose grace. And that choice echoed across centuries. It survived the revolution that killed her. It survived the empire that replaced it. It survives even now. Because in the end, it is not the conquerors whom history remembers with compassion. It is those who face defeat with their humanity intact. That is the true story of Marie Antoinette. Not the caricature, not the myth. The real woman who lived, suffered, and died with her soul still her own. They took everything from her, except that. They never managed to take that.